Okay, so we known each other for what? So let's make the math.
Okay.
2025.
So 20 years.
Well, 20 years. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 20
It
years.
went by really fast. I met you when you were new in the business,
Yeah,
Astro Max. I
yeah.
remember with Rosie and I'm trying to remember the cast, but obviously you and Rosie were the ones that Lizette came from there too.
Yeah, she actually she was working for a realtor at the time. She wanted to do something different, so we'd hire her. And it's kind of funny, but I know you mentioned a couple days ago, last time we met. I always had this feeling that you and I were going to come around full circle again.
Me
Like
too.
I've always had this feeling. There's people in my past that there was such a genuine connection. There was just so genuine, and you and your family and your team in your office. I was so blessed and thankful that I was new in my career, and it's a very tough industry. I mean, being in the title and real estate industry, it's so tough. I was very fortunate with you and your family and your team that every time I went into your office, it was such a welcome.
Well,
And
likewise,
and I will never forget. You guys had I believe it was either Thanksgiving or Christmas. You guys had a lechon,
Yes,
okay? And I showed up and said, Victor, you have the honors of cutting that lechon, and I still remember that day till this day. So that
really.
stuck to me. So I want to say thank you so much for coming to the podcast. Um,
Thank you for having me.
this is gonna be great. So, ladies and gentlemen, today I have my good friend Ernesto Bendicion. This guy, man, let me tell you about this guy. He does marathons.
Oh no.
This guy's in amazing shape. His mentality is unbelievably strong. And every time I watch his videos, it makes me want to go to the gym. It makes me want to run. It makes me want to go cycle. It makes me want to do something. And I mean that. I mean that you're definitely inspired out there.
I
And
appreciate it.
no, I appreciate you for
Thank you.
coming. And let's get to it, brother. Let's get to it.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
Of
You
course. So
know.
let's talk about, when we reconnect, one of the things that obviously, when you came through my feed on TikTok, man, I saw what you're doing, man. Like you're just keeping fit and you're running and then your love for running.
Yeah, a lot of
What?
people don't know that. I do love running.
Mhm.
I separated my running videos from my real estate career. I felt that somehow the people are getting confused. Like, what is he doing? Is he selling real estate or is he out there running every time? So that's what I've done. Um, Running is, I guess it helps me deal with the pressure that we deal
Mhm.
with in this industry. And I can imagine, the title business. I think about this
Mhm.
from time to time. Real estate is a tough business, right? A lot of competitors. There's so many real estate licensee out there.
Mhm.
You know, um, it's between the real estate licensee and a lawyer and a stripper in Vegas are like competing on first place.
Yeah.
So, but as a title officer,
Mhm.
there's a lot out there too.
Yeah.
And you guys have to compete with the same exact, you know, pool.
Right.
And I met a lot of them, and I sometimes I wonder, like, man, that's a you know, that's a tough business. That you have to be really persistent
Mhm.
and among other things and creative,
Mhm.
right? Because you all try to bring something on the table, but what? How do you set yourself apart?
That's a great question. And nobody has asked me that, but it's a great question. Honestly, the way you set yourself apart is being your authentic self. And before, I didn't understand that. I felt that I was trying to accommodate myself based on what I thought people wanted me to be, which in turn caused more pressure within myself. It caused more friction. Um, and it got crazy. The stress is higher. But to answer your question, once you become your authentic self and like, hey man, this is what I like to do, this is who I connect. And sometimes you probably experienced this before. Sometimes you cannot be afraid to say no, or you cannot be afraid of like, I cannot take you on as a client. And it's not coming from a place of arrogance. It's coming from a place of, once you know yourself and your value and what you can do, you start attracting and stop chasing as much. And that has worked out for me.
That's great. Easier said than done.
Absolutely.
Because
But you're doing the same thing.
right. Well, for one, I've known you for 20 years. You're just you're a good-hearted man,
Mm-hmm.
right? And you always try to help,
Right.
and that is pretty much your default setting. And to say no is not natural to you,
It's not.
right? That's
It's
why I
not.
said it's easier said than done, because
Right.
that's not your true nature,
Mm-hmm.
And to some people it comes naturally,
Yes.
to some
Mhm.
people,
Yes.
but not most. So yeah, easier said than done,
Yeah, I had to
because that's
learn.
not your nature.
No, but also the same thing about you. I know with with Landmark Realty, I mean, the property management, it's got to be tough.
It's a different animal.
I-
It's a
and
different
and
animal.
and I think a lot of people don't know how much of a different animal that is, and the pressure, the stress, the calls, the emergencies. I mean, if in the summer myself, I'm already worrying about, man, I hope the AC unit doesn't go off. You're worrying about hundreds
Oh
of
yeah.
AC units.
Oh
So
yeah.
tell me a little bit of how do you manage that? And obviously, we're very similar, Ernesto, where, we're just good guys, man. We just want to help others. Like,
Yes.
what do you do in those
Yes.
tough situations where you're managing problems? Like, tell me a little bit about that side of the industry, what you do.
Boy, property management, like I said, it's a different animal. Picture this: um, it's Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon. You're with your family. You're relaxed. You're wearing your shorts,
Mm.
your comfortable shirt. You're grilling your chicken wings. It's Super Bowl Sunday, and then your phone rings. There's an emergency.
Yeah.
And you have guests. you know, and then to add more degrees of difficulties, it's like really, really hot. So it's the air conditioning unit. So it's a health issue. You cannot ignore it, right? And lo and behold, it's Super Bowl. Every single HVAC guys are drunk somewhere already,
Right.
So you have
Right.
to figure out a way. You have to find somebody,
Wow.
To the extent of what I've done before is I actually went to Home Depot and purchased a couple of those portable ACs
Mhm.
and brought it to the house
And
while
that's
they
what I'm
wait.
saying. That's what I'm saying about you.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people that won't do that. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you have that side of you as well, where you truly care about the people. And that's, out of all the years that I've known you, that's always a great quality I love about you. But isn't become, is there a point though where you're like just stressed, man? It's pressure. What about you get two
Oh,
calls? Like, how do you
oh,
handle all of that,
totally.
man? How do you
Totally.
handle that?
I ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
You can't handle all of them.
Mm-hmm.
You do the best you can. You put yourself in their shoes and in their situation.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately, you have to ask for help. I have a great team now. If you don't have the proper team and structure,
Mm-hmm.
and now AI, obviously,
Right.
we have that in our, in our trick bag, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You won't survive in this industry. You won't make it. It's really hard.
Yeah.
In the real estate industry, we get that quarterly newsletter,
Right.
the open house newsletter.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen one of those?
Yeah. Yeah.
Every real estate agent will get it. It used to be they used to mail that out. I
Mhm.
haven't seen the actual print copies anymore, but I do see it in my email every quarter. If you open that, I used to do this all the time. I would open those and flip through those pages. 3 or 4 pages of that is dedicated to basically real estate agent who lost their licenses or who got fined or went to jail.
Yes.
And I would, like once in a while I would breeze through that. Do I know anybody on this thing?
Google the name.
Like Google
Yeah.
it. Oh, I know him. I know her.
Right.
Right. And if you look at all those violations and the trouble that they go through, 85% of those the violations are in property management, and it's always about money,
What is the number one violation?
embezzlement.
Really?
Yes.
I would have never thought embezzlement.
Embezzlement. Basically, the real estate property managers using the rent money for their own personal use. That's a fact. That's
Wow.
basically what's been happening. That's why majority of those violations are property management.
I'm like, "Phew,
Yeah,
I had
no,
no
it's
clue.
not even real estate. So, um, and that's why they really raised the bar in policing property
Mhm.
managers in town. That is that's why they came out with a permit and all. Continuing
Mhm.
educations.
Okay.
And we do yearly audit, right? The
Mhm.
Department of Real Estate would audit our books to make sure we're not commingling our personal, and
Right.
yeah, we
Wow.
submit it every year. We balance our book every month to make sure not not a penny, even for just a penny, we get in trouble.
Wow, that's good to know. That is
Yeah.
good to know. Honestly, I always thought it was some sort of because I've heard horror stories of people that, whoa, I make the call for repairs and it's been a month or it's been weeks and they haven't come out to repair. So I was thinking it was maybe some sort of violations like that because I also hear horror stories on in the middle of the summer where, and for what I know, Nevada, um, Arizona, and I believe New Mexico and Texas are emergency states,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And meaning that if something happens to let's say the AC air conditioning, they gotta be repaired ASAP.
Yes. Or you need to accommodate the tenant because it's a health issue. Either you put him in a hotel
Okay.
or bring a portable, unit to make sure that,
Wow.
yeah.
And what is the time frame for that?
Typically, there's not an exact date, but
Mhm.
typically it should be 24 to 48 hours. And I try to act, we try to act on it a lot sooner, obviously. We try to be proactive. Like right now, it's springtime. We are sending out notices to everybody, the
Mhm.
owners and the tenants. Hey, um, summer is around the corner. Best time to get those units cleaned and tuned up and filters changed, right? So when
Just
that first triple digit hits,
yes.
you turn your HVAC on.
Wow. So you're being proactive,
Yeah,
making
you have to
sure.
be proactive on these things. And you get used to it. We
Okay.
we manage a little over 300 houses now because we really focused on systems the last year and a half.
Okay.
Our software, AI. So my brother just told me that okay, we're ready for growth and we're gonna pivot on growth this time.
Mhm.
And our goal is to increase our business at least 50% this year.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Wow,
yeah,
50. That's aggressive.
yeah, aggressive and doable based on what we can do.
Mhm.
We're not even advertising. We're not spending a dime on advertising whatsoever at the moment, and we're averaging, you know, 52 referrals a year, or as it is. I mean, 50, 60 referrals a year as it is.
Wow. Do you think that success, so that has to do with how you take care of the people, the care and the level of attention that
Oh yeah, I
people
think
need?
so. I think so. It has to be.
Hmm.
I think it has to be. Um, I'd like to think
Hmm.
that way.
Okay.
I'd like to think that way, but we could definitely use more growth.
Okay.
You know.
Now I'm also curious. So you're dealing with the tenants. Okay, you're taking care of them. On the owner side of the property, is it a different type of system, a different level of care? Meaning, when there's an issue, of course, like if I'm the owner of the property, the owner's more than likely, how much is this going to cost me to repair?
Right.
Right. There's obviously, I'm assuming that maybe 95 to even to 100% of the properties being managed, I'm assuming they do have a home warranty.
Yes. Some people.
Okay.
We encourage it.
Okay.
We handle the calls with a home warranty whenever it requires us to. Um, but yeah. What also we do is we don't have, unlike some other property management company, they actually have a handyman service company that they own.
Okay.
We don't have one of those. We subcontract everything.
Mhm.
We vet a handful of proven, you know good record
Mhm.
um, vendors that we put on our list. And in that way, when there's work involved, we send two or three guys and get bids and let them compete to make
Wow.
sure that we get the best pricing for the owner,
Wow.
right? We've never opened our own because we kind of felt that it's that's a conflict of interest.
I was gonna say it could be a little conflict of
Yeah,
interest there.
right. Like,
yeah.
oh, there's always repair. We make 20% out of it. It doesn't
Yeah.
pencil out, so it doesn't
Yeah.
jive well.
Okay.
So that's what we've decided. Like, nope, we're not gonna do that and subcontract everything.
See, my biggest thing though, and again, home warranties are great, and I'm not putting any home warranty down. I think they're great. I mean, I use the product I have in my house. But I do have to say, if during the summer, if that AC breaks down, you call the home warranty.
Yeah.
It's gonna have to be one of their approved vendors that go.
Yeah.
And it's, to me, I don't know how I would handle that scenario. In a sense, I'll be going crazy, man.
Yeah,
Like,
you're one of those guys who can't handle heat.
Yeah.
You'd rather be cold.
Exactly. But
Right.
I'm meaning also, like, if I was in those shoes when I'm the property manager, okay, the AC went out, okay, there's a baby in the house, there's a toddler, there's dogs, there's a family there, okay, call the home warranty. Sorry, we're backed up. We probably won't be there till
Tuesday or Wednesday. Yeah.
To me, I'm one of those people that I will actually feel those emotions of what they're going through. And that's one thing that I don't like about myself, but also do, because I'm like, I get so involved that I just don't know. That stress will probably drive me crazy.
Yeah.
So in those situations, man, like, how do you keep your cool? How do you keep everybody, letting him know everything's gonna be okay? Like, what is it that you do to make that thing happen, or just to keep everybody calm until we get that problem resolved? How do you handle the pressure of and stress of a family being, AC went out, there's kids at home, there's dogs, there's elderly, their parents are living with them. You get a call, AC's out, we have our family here. You call the home warranty. Sorry, I cannot get anybody there till today. It's Sunday. I cannot get anybody there till Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. Like, what is the plan of attack? I'm
That
sure it does.
happens a lot, right? As you know, every summer, every HVAC company in town are so busy, right? Even your friend that you call
Yeah.
him like, hey,
Yeah.
my AC stopped working. Okay, I'll be there on Wednesday.
Right.
And with our experience, we know that happens. So I've actually invested with a few portable HVAC units in our office. So
Mhm.
whenever that kind of scenario happens,
Wow.
as a courtesy, we don't get paid for it. I'll have a portable AC delivered to their house.
Wow. Wow.
Especially when they have a baby or they have kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'll just do that while you're waiting here. Plug this in.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I want to ask you one more question about property management. And I want to move on to a little bit about you and the personal side, if I may.
Sure.
There's a lot of people that are blessed to own 1 or 2 properties, or even 3 properties, investment properties. They are property managing themselves. What will be the benefit of a property management company like yours? What is the benefits, and what is the difference of your company property managing versus I want to property manage my properties? What is the difference in the benefits?
That's a good question. Thank you for asking that question. Well, there's so many. A lot of times, for example, I have a doctor friend
Mm-hmm.
who owns a handful of properties, and he used to self-manage, right? Because he's very capable of it. You can, people can manage their own properties. The challenge with that, though, is, first of all, besides the time, it's time consuming. It'll take away your time. You're better off working overtime and getting paid extra and hire a property manager than doing this work yourself. You don't have the resources because you don't have the business, right? It pencils out for us to spend money on our tenant screening software, right? To find the right renter, first and foremost.
Wow.
It takes care about 85 to 90% of the problem when you put the right tenant in these properties. And then we have the vendors, right? They call us, they don't call you. We know laws. We actually have, as you know, my sister's a real estate attorney.
Mm-hmm.
We technically have a real estate lawyer, on retainer,
Oh, it
right?
definitely added value.
It adds value.
Yeah.
So the last thing you want if you are self-managing is find a tenant who's actually smarter than you.
Mm,
you know, and and it can spell trouble, in a
right.
lot of ways,
Right.
right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think a lot of people with properties view it as, well, I'm going to be saving a couple bucks here and there, but to me, the way I look at it, I'm like, I'd rather know that I have the right tenant. I'd rather know that there's an issue. Time is one of the most valuable thing
Oh yeah,
anybody can have. Like, and I said this before, if you really analyze time, just you being here, giving me your time, that is the biggest gift you can give me, because I cannot pay you that back.
likewise.
I cannot pay that back. And I'm thinking also with property manager having having it, you're gonna save yourself so much time, that headaches, that pressure that you are taking.
Oh yeah.
You know?
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
I'm sure you've heard those crazy stories when a tenant destroys the property,
Yes.
right? Here you are saving what, $140 in property management fee, but they destroy your property that costs you about $15,000 to repair,
Then it costs you more.
substantially more.
Right.
Because you wanted to save $140.
Yeah, or the time to call the home warranty and to set up appointments and stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, that's like hours out of somebody's time. And if you add that up, if you really want to get to the science of it, add how many hours and it's costing from your job. I think you end the homeowner will end up winning here.
Right.
They'll end up
Right.
benefiting.
Right.
Wow, man, I'm learning so much. I mean, I've been in the business 23 years now, but I never really knew so much about property management as you're teaching me now. So
Yeah,
I
thank you.
appreciate it.
You
I
know.
appreciate it. So I want to move on to you as a person, because I want my viewers to also get to know the person. We talked a little bit about the beginning, but I want to go back to, we had lunch last week, and man, I feel you're so focused. You're very focused on yourself, your body, your health, your family. And to me, sometimes I see that it can be very difficult to focus in all of it at once.
Sure.
It's got to have a balance, especially with property management, which I believe is so stressful, in my opinion. I know we talked about running, but how do you balance it all?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't even think about it. I
Mhm.
used to. I try when we were young.
Mhm.
Obviously, we try to control everything.
Right.
We thought we had control of
Mhm.
things, but we really don't. Systems. We have a great system in place. I know that as far as property management is concerned, we have the right tool that we've already automated to
Mhm.
deal with when things arises. Um, and I'm very active. I like the outdoors. As you know, I'm an avid runner. I
Yes.
run marathons. I hike. I spend a lot of time outdoors.
Mhm.
I enjoy it. My family enjoys it. That's why I'm really, really blessed, truly blessed to have that kind of family who enjoys the same activities as you do. You know, last year, for instance, last year, this is how busy I get. Right, last year I ran 8 marathons.
Wow.
I in all over the country. I ran in Portugal, in Spain, in London, in Mexico. Um, I went to several hiking places. I enjoy those things. I think I kind of find it more of a reset for my mind. I guess
Mhm.
it came late in my life, but better late than never.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree. I
yeah.
agree. And tell me about your family, as I know your daughter lives in Florida and she owns fighting gyms, and your
Yes,
son, I'm gonna go see him once my shoulder's better.
yes.
I want his son to get me up to par like Ernesto, strong and just going at it. So tell me a little bit about your family.
Okay. My eldest daughter, her name is AJ. I believe she turns 33 this year. She lives in Florida. She owns a 10 Planet gym. It's an
Mhm.
MMA gym. Her and her fiance have been running it for the last 3 or 4 years. Um, they're just into it, MMA, mixed martial arts. Um, my son Jake, he will be 32 this year. He is an orthopedic PA.
Mm-hmm.
He takes care of my knees. Couple of years back, I tore my meniscus from one marathon event, and he gave me some PRP shots, did some rehab, peptides, and all
Mm-hmm.
that. I break, he fixes, repeat, basically.
Right.
That's the reason why I can get away with it. I did the High Rocks last February. I did the LA Marathon last month.
Wow.
Um, you know, w- while doing all these things, right?
Yes.
You know, I was actually on schedule to climb Mount Kilimanjaro in May,
Oh.
but the Iran war broke out, so I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to fly out in that
Yeah.
area for now.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think I'm postponing Mount Kilimanjaro for December.
Mm-hmm.
I got accepted to run the Sydney Marathon in August, so I'm running the Sydney Marathon on August 30th.
Wow.
So I'm excited about that.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, thank
That's
you.
amazing.
And
And in our lunch conversation, you told me something that stick to me, which once my son it's older, that's the mentality I want him to have. It's you told me that you're always pushing your son to do what he loves.
Yeah.
You actually encourage your son, hey, go backpacking through Europe like I did. Go
Yes.
live, which to me is amazing because I feel that mentality's changing, right? I
Yes,
think
a whole bunch.
a lot of people are waking up to, I don't know, sometimes I feel who set up the rules?
Right.
Who set up the rules that you have to do this and you have
Right.
to do that? I had a conversation. I was in the middle of a conversation amongst people, and one of them asked for the other person's age, and he said, "Oh, I'm 40. I'm 45. Are you married? No, no kids." And this person, the reaction was like, "Oh, wow! Like, are you gonna have kids?" I'm like, and to me, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, who says that at a certain age you have to get married? Or
Right.
so
and have kids.
exactly,
Right.
exactly. I mean, obviously that can come later in life, but I don't know. But what you said to me resonated because that's, when my son gets older, that's what I want to do as well.
Yeah.
And
How
to
old
me,
is your son now?
my son's 4. It's 4,
already.
but I found it very, I found it just very impressive. And, that you would just tell me, no, I want him to go backpacking through Europe. I want him to live. I want him to have these experiences, versus, no, you have to go to school, get a master's,
Yeah.
get a career. And I see a lot of that shifting.
Oh yeah. That mentality came from our parents.
Okay. Wow.
That was given to them, and they
Mhm.
were trying to impose on us,
Mm-hmm.
right? That hey, you're gonna be a lawyer or a doctor, or you're a disappointment.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of mentality. Some of that kind of got stuck with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that my kids doesn't have that anymore. But I have some residue of that mindset, right? Like so for my son, for instance, right? My son Jake, he's an orthopedic PA.
Mm-hmm.
When he was growing up, I would always tell him that you can be whatever you want. Don't let anybody pressure you about choosing your career.
Mm-hmm.
But on his birthday, I'll give him like a stethoscope for a gift.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lab coat, and you know what I mean. like okay, but you can be whatever you want. And then,
But here's it.
but here's a toy stethoscope, and
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the residues of our parents, right? But to them it's different. And you
Right.
can just imagine the generation on, like yours, for instance, right?
Right. Right.
With your encouragement, and then your grandchildren will be completely different. They'll be, I would always, argue with my friends because Gen
Mhm.
Xers are very proud people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would always tell them that, millennials or even Gen Zs may very well be the greatest generation because they're less damaged,
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
because they don't deal with pressure like we did.
No. It's
It's not worth it for them.
yeah.
Like, okay, that's like as my sister would put it, nope, that is burnout central. Goodbye.
Which I think it's great. You know
It's
what I mean?
great, really, it's great. But the generation before us were like, I can handle that. Pop, 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 and all
Which will definitely trigger different things, different problems. I feel
more than they would admit.
I agree.
More than they would admit, Vic.
You mentioned something that caught my attention. You said that you were not always the way you are, but you're glad you at least caught it. And so what happened? So tell me were you different before in a sense of maybe took things differently, handled things differently to versus how you handle them now?
Oh, I think it comes with the age. You're much more passive.
Mm-hmm.
Much like you met me when I was much younger. I was more aggressive,
Mm-hmm.
sales,
Right.
right?
Right.
I think it comes with the age. You
Okay.
know, the testosterone level decreases, and I think I secrete more estrogen now than testosterone. You know, it's just nature will take its place, right? You slow down and you're more grateful.
Well, the reason I ask because usually I'm finding that sometimes there's something that happened that changes people.
Oh, absolutely,
You know,
always.
there's some event or a lesson that you've learned. So that's what I was getting at.
Well, always. Life is a constant lesson, right? Just when my youngest son got sick,
Mm-hmm.
for instance, he's doing well now.
Mm-hmm.
I felt helpless,
Mm-hmm.
and just started paying more attention to what really matters in life.
Mm-hmm.
A whole lot of things.
I agree.
Being grateful,
I agree.
and that mindset really helps me deal with the daily grind of this wild world of real estate, right?
Yeah,
You know.
and I have to say, once you and I reconnected, obviously one thing that you always remember people that had an impact on you and stuff like that, and you had an impact on me then, and you're having even more of an impact to me now. I just want you to know that.
I appreciate that. That's
Yeah,
so
but
nice.
just your energy, just your energy, what you're doing. I mean, as I'm getting older as well, and not to saying that you're old or anything, but I look at you and I'm like, wow, like I can get to that level.
Yeah, you're already
I can
that level.
I can run marathon still. I can
absolutely.
because I shared a little bit about to you about my story, and to me
Yeah.
came to a point that I couldn't even I couldn't even run a quarter mile anymore. So when I started watching your videos, I'm like, wow, like that's amazing. Look at what he's doing, especially the one where you're at an indoor gym and you're just pulling on the ropes,
Yeah.
man, and you're just so focused. I'm like, you know what? Those videos, man, really did something. I want you to know. I was like, I'm like, wow, look, he's doing it. I can do it. I can do it as well. And then the last lunch, how we were talking about how you take care of yourself, and I'm like, and I told my wife about it. I'm like, listen, I'm motivated. I'm back. Let's do it. Let's do it. So
I'm so happy for
yeah,
you.
I've been after watching the videos now. I've been running, so I'm up to almost a mile and a half.
Right on. I'd love to go run with
Yes,
you.
I probably won't be able to run
Oh,
as
no,
many miles, but you know what? No. I'll keep up with you. I'm already putting.
There you go.
I'm already putting
Thank
mental
you.
blocks.
Thank you.
Screw
Don't
that.
stop that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how I all started too.
Mhm.
I would run a mile and a half in my neighborhood
Mhm.
about 12 years ago,
Mhm.
and one day I was in my 40s already. I was running and I was being grateful. Actually, I was talking to myself. I said,
Mhm.
I was telling myself how lucky, how blessed, how privileged am I? I can still do this at this age,
Right.
doing a mile and a half in my neighborhood. And I was staring at my legs while I was doing that, mind you.
Right.
And then I just looked up and I said, I didn't even get to run a single marathon in my life. Maybe I should run a marathon in my life. I'm going to run a marathon. Got home, jumped in the computer, and I looked for a marathon. That's
Wow.
really what happened. And I found they were having the Rock and Roll Las Vegas half marathon on the strip,
Mhm.
12 days away. And I signed up for it.
Wow. And wow, look at that.
And then the rest is history.
Yeah, but but you're so right. It's about what kind of self talk we do with each other.
Yeah.
Because with me, like I always used to get up when I was having my issues, just complaining, and but the moment I also switched to where it's a great day. I'm very blessed.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm in pain, but I'm just blessed to be here and experience this. And
Right.
I think it gives you a different perspective of things.
I saw your videos. I didn't know you were going through these things until
Mhm.
I started watching your videos.
Mhm.
To be honest,
Mhm.
I didn't know. I
Mhm.
had no idea.
Mhm.
And when you were, I would watch a few of your videos when you were cycling. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Vic
Mhm.
going through this thing that bad?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Well, I was hiding it well.
You sure?
I was hiding until just kind of one day, just say, man, I think we can help people out. We can be open, and so that's why I started posting also more content, and that's why I like to do these interviews with people such as yourself, because yeah, man, like I said, I'm not gonna lie, your videos really did trigger something on me. Where like, man, like, look at that. I said I want to get to that. So even now, with my shoulder, I'm like, I said, I'm going to get through physical therapy. I'm going to get stronger. So my language has changed
I'm glad.
to where like, hey, let's do it. But yeah, but I have you to thank your videos for that.
Oh,
So
yeah, yeah. Well, I get, I follow a few people and get inspired. I get inspired by yours as well.
Appreciate
I
that.
see yours. This morning, my youngest, Ernest Jr., he's, he's 20 years old. We were just talking about this over breakfast about, at that age, you don't quite know what you want to do.
Right.
Right. So he's going back and forth what he wants to do in life. And I was encouraging him, go out there and explore. Don't decide yet. Go out there and explore. So he said he's ready. He's doing the Camino in June. Basically he wants to walk. He backpacks from Porto, Portugal,
Wow.
to northern Spain, which will take about, total about 12 to 14 days. So he's excited. We were just, believe it or not, this is what we were doing this morning while we were having breakfast. We were reading poetry. He was reading to me. I don't know if you come across he read two poems to me. One is a poem called Desiderata.
Okay.
The things we need. Look it up when you get a chance.
Okay.
And the other one is If by Rudyard Kipling.
Okay.
And it was really nice. It was really nice. He was reading me poems while we were having breakfast, and I said, that's beautiful.
It is. It is. I mean, it's again, I think we're very blessed and thankful, and it's all about perspective.
Perspective. That's all it comes down to. And honesty, really, honesty. Just be honest.
Yeah.
What really matters in life, right?
Yeah.
With real estate property management, I handle them. We have a great system in place. I truly believe that we have a great team. And then you do the hard work. It's always hard work.
Yeah.
There's always work.
Where can people reach you? Hopefully they're watching this episode and they have an interest in property management. Can they contact you? How can they contact you?
Absolutely. I'll put the link on this podcast. If you have any questions, I like mentoring people also, not just to recruit them to work for me. In fact, in my office, I'm the only active real estate agent at the moment and a property manager, right? I have one real estate agent that works for me. Her name is, Jennifer Dayrit. She's in the Philippines. She's been there for the last couple of months. I'm not sure if she's coming back. I have Tabitha Johnson, but she's sort of a semi-retired. Okay. She just needed a place to hang her license. So essentially, it's just me and my pops, which is also retired. Or cruise control, forever cruise control. So it's really just me. True story, last night, I created this ad that I was going to hire another agent because there's a little extra buyers or clients coming in, and I can't effectively handle all of it, not by myself.
Right.
So I was going to, place the ad last night, and I said, wait, think about it first before you hire somebody else, because everything is working fine. Why change it if it's working perfectly fine?
Right. Why reinvent the wheel if everything's running smooth?
That's right. But at the same token, I was thinking, because my goal this year is to, my wife and I, we've decided let's go sell 52 transactions this year. So far, so good. So far, so good. And I'd like to follow through it. And I was thinking maybe we should hire another agent, handle the load a little bit more.
Well, my friend, I have no doubt you're going to make that goal or even surpass it. I have no doubt about that.
Well, I'm hoping, right? I want to start advertising. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And that's why hence we're here. When we had lunch the other day, we said, let's do a podcast. Maybe we can create some contents out of it. Right?
Yeah, well, I think we're creating great content, and again, it's not what we talked about. It's just about having a true connection and just being authentic and, getting the message out there and stuff like that. So,
right.
Like I said, I have no doubt that you're going to be helping out a lot of people. And I want to ask you, what advice do you have for people going through a crazy situation right now that are watching the podcast, what advice do you have for them?
Oh, wow. Work hard. If there's anything, I'm just thinking about myself, like, okay, what would advice would you give to me? I've been in this business over 30 years. I've seen the biggest booms and the toughest crashes. I've seen every cycle and, navigated every situation you can imagine, right?
Mhm.
At the end of the day, you just have to work hard. I feel that fortune doesn't really care how smart you are. It always rewards the hard workers at the end of the day, you know.
Wow.
I just feel that way. So I just work hard.
Wow. That is great advice. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, Ernesto, I want to say thank you so much for stopping to the podcast. This was great.
Thank you.
We had a little bit of everything. And like I said, follow him on social media, follow him on his marathons. Can you give us your social media handles?
Ernest Che Bendicion, Team Ernest at LV on Instagram, and Ernest Che Bendicion on Facebook.
And I'll go ahead and also put the links in the on the podcast description. Thank you everybody for tuning in. As always, we'll here try to help everybody out, and everybody's going through something. Work hard, and my advice is just don't stop. Don't stop whatever you do. Thank you. Have a good day. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ernest.
Bye.
Thank you also.